Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Take Your Points. I'm your host, Ronan Scott. This week's guests are Odhran Eastwood, the Antrim footballer, and Gareth McKinless, the Derry player. And we're going to be talking about Antrim's season and Derry's season, and also the club championship that was on at the weekend and everything that's coming up this weekend. So welcome to the show, lads. To get started, I wanted to talk about the season past. Odhran, you played with Antrim this year. It was a successful year and under new management. I mean, how pleased were you with how the season went?
Delighted. I mean, the first, you always at the start of the season always say you want to get promoted. Especially, I think we were 3 or 4 years there in Division 4, so to finally get promoted, brilliant. Obviously, and his first year as well, so couldn't have gone any better for him. Obviously, we've won all the games as well, so and kept it in our own hands the entire way. But obviously, disappointing finish with the championship. I mean, decent first half maybe against Armagh, and then kind of, towards the end of the half it was nip and tuck. They got a goal, and then second half just unfortunately just ran away from us. But I mean, I'll tell you, the league was good for us. Obviously, we need to get up the divisions. I had the same in Division 3 this year, but yeah, disappointed just with championship and how I finished probably.
What do you think the difference was this year, or how it was ended different as a manager?
We're kind of talking there before come on air, all three of us, like different voices and things like that. He brought in a whole new backroom team and things like that as well with Stevie and Sean. And obviously, everyone knows Stevie what he's like, and everyone in Antrim knows Sean Kelly very well. So that the coaching as well that they all brought to the table was brilliant, and everyone just really enjoyed it and everything. So it kind of obviously came out then with the results we got. So yeah, I would definitely, the three of them were brilliant all year.
Gareth, Derry season, it wasn't a new manager, but it probably felt like it was a proper run for Rory this time, because I spoke to a few Derry players and they said that Rory didn't get a proper go the first year. What did you think? Do you think that was technically his first year, I suppose? I
would agree. Yeah. He would definitely agree. I'd say he was coming in to set up maybe, and the management team that he had with him, maybe there's people involved in the setup that it wasn't all of his own. So I think this year especially, I think he just done a clear run, and he got in who he wanted in. He was strength and conditioning coach, Peter Hughes, his physios, doctors, whatever, and I think he was happy with who he got in now. So.
How pleased were you with the season? Like, what did you think of it? I know we didn't win Ulster or anything, but how pleased were you with the progress?
Start of the year, we set out to for our first goal was to get promoted and to win Division 3. So for us, we achieved that. But at the end of the day, and Rory, he's clear on it. He wants to win Ulster titles, and there's no point. And he says it day in, day out. If we're training as hard as we're training, you're not there to win leagues and to compete. You want to win Ulster championships. You want to compete in Ulster finals. So. In hindsight, looking back, great that we're now in Division 2 and climbing. Again, our goals for this year will be to be promoted from Division 2 and try and compete again at the top table, because if you're not playing the best teams week in, week out, it's hard to improve and to ultimately reach the goal of winning Ulster championships. So.
Yeah. The Derry Club Championship final was played at the last weekend. Glen beat Slaughtneil to win their first title, but they had a new manager, and that's something both you two will know about. Why do you think that the manager Malky O'Rourke coming in was so key? Like, why was that so important? Because we all felt that Glen probably could have won it a couple of years ago.
Yep, I think fresh face, new, just a clean slate for a lot of players, and their age profile being that the sort of 28, 27, 25, a lot of mature players, even though they're still at a reasonably young age. I think that him coming in and setting the groundworks and laying the law down, as we spoke off air, I think picking the captain he did was a great decision. Obviously, he's not a county man, but he's a real good club man, and he's seen that in him. That's Conor Carville, yeah. And I just think there was no messing around. Ray and Porter, obviously, them two have been together for many years, and I think they came in and set the standards high, knew what they wanted, and obviously from yesterday's result achieved that. So.
Yeah, Odhran, what did you think of Glen winning the Derry Championship? Do you think that was, it got down to the manager, or what did you think of, the result?
No, I mean, obviously from the outside looking in, like you're talking about a new manager there, but I mean, if it's Malachy O'Rourke coming in anywhere, you're doing all right, especially at club level. Like everyone has seen what he's done anyway on the county scene. And again, from the outside looking in, like I've seen, Glen winning all those minor titles and things like that, and all those kind of lads doing well at McCrory level. So as Gareth's saying, at the age profile now, when they've had a few years at senior level, playing football at that level, I mean, it's probably not a great surprise. I mean, I know Slot Neil and the pedigree and the history they've had in the last few years, but just looking at individual names and then the manager bring it all together, no real surprise. I mean, I know they got beat a few years ago as well, which I would say probably stood to them as well, even though yesterday's game wasn't particularly close. Just all those kind of factors combined, they just look like a serious outfit. Like,
yeah, it perhaps wasn't a surprise to some that they won because of the success they've had coming up. But there was another surprise, in Donegal, in that St Eunan's beat Naomh Conal, who would have been expected to win, based on their been winning the two previous and also the system that they play. What did you think of that result whenever you saw St Eunan's beating Naomh Conal?
Yeah, I mean, it's the system more than anything. Like they cut their cloth to suit. Like, I mean, it probably doesn't please everyone. I mean, the two in a row, and then the recent kind of battles with Kilcar between last year and this year. I mean, definitely a surprise. I know that there's St Eunan's have a few county players and a few big names, but maybe I could be taken for granted that Naomh Conal would win easy. But I mean, again, the systems, sometimes maybe you can think too much about it or get caught up on it too much, I don't know, but a surprise to me. But I'd be more interested in what people within Donegal would kind of think of that, or if they thought Naomh Conal were, I know they were going for 3 in a row, I don't know if they got that plays in their mind as well. But yeah, a bit surprised, but there is serious quality and with St Eunan's, with the O'Donnells and things like that.
What did you think of systems though? Do you think, you wouldn't play a lot of them with St Enda's, or maybe a bit with Antrim? Systems play?
Oh, well, in terms of like the Naomh Conal system, that way it is, from what I've seen, was very defensive. Like, and I mean, I think most, even at the higher, like county level and like the higher club level, it's teams are not used to it, because you could say Naomh Conal won 2 in a row, but teams are just smarter to it. They know how to work around it and things like that. So I think you can be a bit too rigid almost sometimes, because teams are so well used to it now. What'll be 10 years or so more of the blanket defence. So it obviously, Naomh Conal people say they liked it and they won 2 championships with it, but I think sometimes teams can, where we work it out, they can draw you out and not get caught in the break as easily.
Yeah, I think they've been playing that system since Jim McGinnis was managing back 10 years ago, and I think, and according to Barry Doherty from Kilcar, he told Gaelic Life last week that they train it at underage level, so it's the system that the club were sticking with, and they really feel that that's the way that they want to continue to play. What did you think of Naomh Conal winning that or losing that final?
I wasn't surprised that St Eunan's won. I was surprised in the manner that they won. As you say, the system that Naomh Conal play, you're always going to give the opposition a bit of hope, as in they are so defensive, so the game is going to be slow and stop-start. But as St Eunan's, they have a few handy forwards like Leonard Donald's brother Shane, so if you have quality up front, you're going to have a chance, and it'll be interesting now. I think St Eunan's play Glen the first round, so it'll be interesting now to see how they match up.
Scottstown won the Monaghan final, but they were playing Trua, who hadn't been to a final in a long time. It was probably more of a expected result, would you say?
Would say so. Scottstown have been on the road as well for a long time. I'm maybe starting to think they're going to have to start pushing on a bit, and Ulster title is maybe in the rear view even. Well, I think that they'll give Ulster a good rattle. Trua won an All-Ireland intermediate, was it maybe 10 years ago now or more. But as you say, their first senior final, obviously nerves can play a big factor, but I wasn't surprised now that Scottstown got over the line. So
yeah, Scottstown, what did you think of that result, Odhran?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's more the experience of Scottstown more than anything. Like, I know they went down a couple of points early, but like the quality they have, and the boys that have played for Monaghan in big games and played in Ulster club games as well, like they probably never panicked. Yeah, I'd agree with Gareth though, like they definitely probably are thinking more further down the line than an Ulster club run. There's probably a couple of teams like that, like maybe Kilcoo are probably thinking the same, that it's maybe back in their own clubs and parishes, that it's almost like County Heddle's nearly expected now that they've won that many. So I would just say that, yeah, we've expected Scottstown, especially, not to disrespect or anything, but first final in whatever number of years, and just with the quality they have all over the pitch, Scottstown, yeah, not too surprised.
Kilcoo, you mentioned, beat Byrne, who would have probably been their biggest test, but they are deaf. They probably are deaf, and they're probably seeing these other teams dropping, like Slaughtneil, who they might expect to come through. So they're maybe thinking like this could be opening up for us, like, and Niamh Conal going as well, like. Yeah,
no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I off the top of my head, I don't know the exact record Kilcoo in the last 30 years, but that's a couple in a row, and Byrne won one, but they were winning a whole host before that as well. And as you said, they're with an Ulster run, I think, Glen are playing St Eunan's now, so there's two big hitters going against each other and things, so they dig. I mean, obviously they'll not let that slip that they're looking for Ulster runs, but I'd say there's a bit of pressure maybe to try and go as far as they can, and because I know they got one a few years ago, but maybe that's maybe they want to push on and get more.
Gareth, what do you think of Kilcoo? Have you seen much of them down the line, or what did you think of of their success in the recent years?
They've definitely deserved their championships over the last number of years. I would say this one has definitely been the toughest. Talking to a few players, Killiam Doherty and the likes, and he was saying to me that he wasn't as sure this year than any other year. He says that, and as the saying goes, once you're at the top, everybody wants to get at you. So I think that they'll be glad to have got over the line, and again, they can, as Ulster could open up, they'll fancy their chances. So
that's one of the things. That's what's pretty, spectacular about how Kilcoo have been able to do it, because everybody's taking pot shots at you. Cargan probably suffered a bit from that, because everybody was coming at them, and Slaughtneil suffered of that too. Like, everybody's coming at them, but Kilcoo are able to fend off these challenges. And
as a credit to them, they have a serious group of players, serious management team involved as well, and it's not easy when all the voices outside are trying to knock you, but fair play to them, and it's a hard one to know. I think that they'll not be far away as well. They'll be fancying their chances. The
Ballinderry thing, whenever Ballinderry were strong, it was a close-knit unit, and that's what Kilcoo have.
Yeah, definitely. You see it in their supporters, the UTM chants. You'll hear it from here to Cork maybe, but they, as you say, they're close-knit, they're tight, and it all bodes well for them and how they perform. So.
And they've got a couple of Derry men over them.
Couple of Derry men, Magic Mickey. So he's doing his best for them, and fair play to him, and obviously Conleth and Paul as well. But no, they're doing something right anyway.
That close knit thing, Odhran, you're Nivena, who in St Enda's up in Glengormley direction, North Belfast. Do you think that you can have the same sort of close knit unit that they would have like in Kilcoo up there? I'm talking about Belfast clubs, because they don't really have the same dynamic.
It's too hard to compare, I think. Like, I mean, because just the difference of communities in general, like the kind of small rural towns where football might be like football's everything, like in like places like Kilcoo and things like that. But I mean, you can still have that same kind of spirit and togetherness as a club and as a team, but it's a different form of togetherness or whatever that is, just because I know from my point of view, like in St Enda's and North Belfast, Glengormley, it's obviously a densely populated area, like, so you're not going to have that same togetherness, because not everyone's a St Enda's person that you walk past in the street, or not everyone's a GA person, but when everyone loves their club in that way, so like you can roll all in behind each other, but it's just a different form, to be honest.
It sort of feels though in Belfast, there are these pockets coming up, the newer clubs, Cardiff's in Breda are in Down, but they're Belfast sort of based, but they have sort of a units, and yourselves have a unit, so these things can evolve, sort of like club teams, rural club teams.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I mean, like you see the success of like Cardiff as well in the last few years. get into the down final and stuff. No, there definitely is that spirit, togetherness, whatever it is that you can't quantify or anything. But just by virtue of people in those living in those areas now, and that's why the GA club, those clubs are so big. Like obviously ourselves carried off by the St Brides and things like that. Obviously huge numbers wise. So you're not going to match other like the kind of rural clubs, as I said, or maybe other clubs who within Belfast who have like a more history or maybe something like that, if you want to say that. But it's still, everyone is rolling in behind it.
A county final in Antrim is Craigin against Hagan. Who would have picked that one final?
I know, yeah. I think everyone, well, 99% of people would have said probably Corrigan at the start of the year, going for, I think was it, I don't know how many in a row, 3 or 4 in a row. But fair play to Craigin. I mean, they've got beat by them a couple of times the last few years, obviously local rivalry and everything like that. And I was at the game. They were well for their victory in the end, definitely. And now Hagan as well. I don't think too many would have picked the final. Especially because obviously Lamdorg were on that side of the draw, and Hagan beat us on the way as well, so unfortunately. But no, I think no one would have definitely guessed that at all.
And do you see it going in any particular way? Which side do you think would be?
Well, I mean, I would be leaning towards Craigin anyway, but I said Corrigan would beat them, so I don't know if you should take my word as gospel or anything. But no, I think Craigin have been thereabouts the last few years. They won a league title or so as well, so they've been knocking about, and they've a St Enda's man at the helm as well, so it might be good to see them.
How does that feel, watching the St Enda's man taking Craigin?
Oh no, not great, not too nowhere on the sidelines.
Gareth, what do you think of that county final? How much do you know about Craigin and Hagan?
I would have to agree with Odhran. I definitely thought Corrigan were nearly a shoe-in for Antrim, especially the performance at the start of the year. But look, anything could happen on a given day, and fair play to Craigin. We played them in the challenge game, as I said earlier, and they had some good players, but they actually picked up some bad injuries from that, and so it's a credit to their squad and their depth that they've been able to get over a team like Corrigan. Again now, I know they've some good young players and they're coming through, but if I had to pick what team, I would have to be Craigin to nip it now, I would say. They're
in danger, well, not in danger of it, but Conor McCann told us Gaelic Life last week that he felt they were concerned about the Mayo effect. You do the hard work in the semi-final and then mess up in the final, because Hagan will be sitting in the long grass for them. Yeah, definitely. But you have to sort of get into the mindset and mentality of, look, it's our time, nothing can stop us, and that'll be determined by their intensity on the day and on if they can bring it, and whoever does that will come out on top. So. And not far away from Hagan is Armagh, and the Armagh Championship is Crossmaglen and Clonairon. Yeah. Where do you see that one going? Is it the old guard, Crossmaglen? Well, I mean, that championship is changing. It used to be Crossmaglen would be certain, but now, Mahari have come up, and there's plenty of competition now, more than it was before. Yeah. Definitely. Obviously, the team is not the team of old. They've changed, and they've younger players through now. Jim McConville's young fella's a great player for them. But again, Clonairon, as I said, they've won an under-20 title, and they've Conor Turbot up front, is a brilliant player. Another young fellas as well. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to pick. I would still maybe lean towards Crossmaglen, maybe just having a bit more experience to get them over the line. Tradition, Joe Cassidy always talks about tradition. Tradition is right. Plays a big factor, especially in tight games, coming to the end of the game. So. Odhran, what do you think? Much you know about this Cross and the Clonairon team?
No, I think as well, same as Gareth there. I mean, the young team of Clonairon, I know, especially with Hagan, both Hagan and Clonairon had boys in those St Ronan's teams who were doing well on the McCrory level there in the last couple of years. So obviously young, up and coming, but despite, even though maybe the Cross aren't the same animal they were and they can be beaten, I do think that they would still have enough. Because they do have the experience of being there before, as well as still the younger players who can bring stuff to the table as well. So I would still be leaning towards Cross. That
St Ronan's Lurgan result was fantastic. That team was. It's interesting how schools can have that knock-on effect, you know? Do you think, you know, in Antrim you've got that knock-on effect in schools that they would have in Armagh and perhaps Derry?
I think the problem for us in Antrim for years is that there was no team in Antrim playing like McCrory football and things, so there was obviously some of the Craigan lads in the team for this week. They played for Mahara Felt when they won at McCrory, that obviously it's a big boost, but at the end of the day they're still Derry schools, so they're going to be dominated by Derry players, so it definitely has an effect, yeah, because you obviously see there with Lurgan and in past years with Mahara, and like a lot of the Mahara lads we were talking about earlier, they obviously would have been playing at that level, but yeah, that was probably the problem for Antrim for years, that we didn't have teams in McCrory, so it was kind of hard to get that boost maybe.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Gareth McCrory? How important is that for like the likes of clubs? Do you think of the Glen team that had a lot of Mahara boys on the team, you know?
No, definitely. Even both sides, Loughneel as well.
Yeah.
The majority would have went to Mahara, and even the coaching, I'd go as far as even the coaching within the schools is massive, and how them players develop. And like, as you say, them boys playing at that level, McCrory level, top schools level, for a lot of them, it does propel them. Like Mahara won, was it Hogan with Conor Glass and the Danny Townley and the rest of them young lads, so like it definitely does, it definitely helps them in their progression now. So.
And it's not just McCrory too, you know, Lexus and Passes, so Brian McIver up out there, like,
oh, of course,
really fed into.
Of course, St Passes, they were playing McLaren, they won an All-Ireland, it was maybe 10 years ago now, but again, good, as I said, good coaches involved, and that it's massive in the development of any kind of player. So you're sort of blessed and graced around that area. So
just before we wrap it up, what do you think then? So you're thinking Crossmaglen and Craigan. Will both of you think Crossmaglen and Craigan then?
I think so, but I wouldn't be surprised. Now, you just wouldn't know. It's the underdog sometimes it's hard to beat them. So
the other final is the Tyrone Championship. Cool Island are playing Dromore, which is we talk about championships being hard to predict. You know that in Gaelic life we talked about Errigal being the fancy team, but then they disappeared. So every year Cool Island or Tyrone Championship is always hard to predict, isn't it? Who do you see coming out of who did you see coming through, and who do you think is going to win that one?
To be honest, I watch a lot of Tyrone League football and Championship football, and if anybody had asked me at the start of the year that Dromore, and there's no disrespect to Dromore at Cool Island, that they would have been in the final, I'd say no hope. Yeah. Honestly, I thought Trillick or Errigal, it was the between the two teams, but look, you have to give credit to Cool Island and Dromore. We're down big both in both semi-finals, 4 and 5 points, and battled back and battled hard to get back and got the victory, where hooker by crook, McLean with the goals, but they'll both fancy their chances against each other, and it's two again proud clubs, so I don't want to pick one because I've a good friend playing for one, so he'll get at me. I'll just say a draw.
The two teams I think you're spot on, but those two teams are teams that just believe that they're going to win. It's every team in Tyrone believes that they're going to win, no matter if it's a junior final of the two bottom teams. They always think they're going to win. How important is that? Like, how important is that self-belief, which every club team in Tyrone seems to have?
It's massive. That kind of the pedigree and of the clubs. I think it's just so hard to measure. But clearly, Coal Highland had it in spades there, coming back against Errigal the last day. But the Tyrone Club Championship, I think everyone's it's been on RTE the last couple of years now as well, and everyone's kind of enthralled by it because it's just so hard to pick a winner every time you go and watch. I mean, I obviously don't watch anywhere near as much Tyrone football as Gareth there, but obviously you put it on there in championship season, and it's enthralling. It's brilliant to watch, and that's probably backed up, but because every team's so stubborn, they think that they're the best, which is that's the way to be. That's what every team should be. But no, I'm looking forward to the match, definitely.
And a strong club championship makes a strong county team, and that's why they're All Ireland champions. What's next for Ballinderry? Like, where do you think you are? Compared to whenever we think of these two big teams now, where do you think you are beneath them or behind them, or how far away are you?
Yeah, well, obviously when you look at Derry, Glen and Sloughneel are the two kingpins. Obviously in Follett, you're maybe thinking Marfelt or Lavey, but anything in behind they're all much of a muchness. If you're asking me, I think any team could really beat anybody, bar them top teams on a given day. But it comes down to, I think it does come down to who's involved management ways and structure of the club. If you can get strength and conditions really becoming a big thing, you can see it in the top clubs. They have invested heavily in strength and condition over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and it's really propelled them to the top. So if you can't beat them, join them, sort of thing. So you have to. We'll be in the process of trying to get to the top level again. So.
The same be the case for yourselves in St Enda's. You would see yourselves as senior championship contenders. There has been a gradual rise from winning the intermediate and then moving up into the senior level. Would that be right, Odhran?
Yeah, I mean, like, we obviously won intermediate a couple of years ago now, and we've got a decent age profile, and boys have played county football, minor football, minor football, under 21 football. So there is, hopefully enough there, but. It kind of goes back to a couple of things we've touched on today in terms of the strength and conditioning there Gareth's talking about, and all the coaching levels and everything else. We had a new manager in this year, Gareth McKinless, who was done brilliant before with St Gall, so he was brilliant for us. But in terms of Antrim, like, obviously Corrigan were dominant there, and that's broken now. That they'll be the wounded animal coming back next year. But I mean, Antrim's quite open. I mean, they've various teams contesting semi-finals the last number of years, but I know Corrigan have won a load, but you've got Lambda, Portland, Ahagallen now, have all contested semi-finals, and there's never any mad hammerings a lot of the time in knockout football. So as Gareth was saying there, in knockout football, and anything can happen. But yeah, for ourselves, you don't want to be known as the team that won intermediate. You want to be known as the team that won senior, so that's where we'll be at, definitely, and trying to push on. It's probably a bit of a disappointing year this year, if we're honest, and you can't no one's going to sit back and accept that. So yeah, that's where probably we'll be at.
Thanks, lads, for your inputs today. Very interesting. We got some predictions, not all predictions, but really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming in.
Cheers, thanks for having us.